Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the Loan Officer Marketing Podcast. We have Andrew Marquis on the show. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Chris.
Make sure I get all of this right. But last year, you were number 9 on the Scotsman's Guide with $317 million in volume. And the numbers just released. And this year, you've jumped all the way up to number 7. But the thing that dropped my jaw is that you went to $418 million in volume, over $100 million increase over last year. Like, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unreal. So, people hearing those numbers
Yep.
are probably going to want me to ask the first question, like, how on earth did you do it in the market that we're in? How did you create that type of growth?
Yeah. So I think what's interesting about our business, Chris, and you may know this, is it's very localized, right? So like each market is different, and we're over 90% Massachusetts. And so in Massachusetts, coming out of the pandemic, we've had a real challenging environment in the sense that very low inventory. So the easiest way I explain that is very few transactions happening. Obviously refinance business is pretty bleak and has been,
Yeah.
but also because of the low inventory, not a lot of transactions happening. So like the way I explain the growth is really working on efficiencies, but also the market improving, Chris, right? And I think although it's been a tough 3 years, like we were just saying, I think that we're in this ever improving market where it's improving a little bit each year, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like, we're going from 7% to 3%, like we did a few years ago, but we're going from, 7 to 6.5, 6.5 to 6, and it goes up and down like a heartbeat. But I think, we attribute that we did some refis, so we got some good refis going. The market opened up from a purchase perspective. And I will tell you that 2025 is off to a much better start than 2024. So we're continuing that trend. So,
That is incredible. Well, congratulations, very well deserved.
thank you.
And so the mindset of success is something that I just find so interesting in how top producers and top achievers talk. And so I noticed in what you said there was down market, not a lot of deals, but also process and growth in the same. Because a lot of people will be like, down market, less deals. Well, I guess I can't get more. So, can you take me into a little bit of your mindset of growth? Like, how do you approach your day in making sure that you're successful and you're building the business and growing and not letting that mindset stuff get at you?
Yeah. So I think this year, like with my team and I, Chris, where we've kind of changed our mindset, I'm glad you bring it up, is it's a mindset of abundance. And what I mean by that is like our market in Boston is also unique in the sense that our clients are incredibly rate savvy. And I know everyone says that, but like, we have Harvard, we have MIT, we have Boston College, we have Tufts. We're right in the middle of all these places where people have master's degrees, PhDs. And like they'll send us a spreadsheet and say, hey, you're number 8 on our spreadsheet. What are your closing costs? What are your interest rate? And so, what the real top producers say is we can only control what we can control, right? And so we don't want to continuously say, fight something that's not working for you, right? So instead of instead of saying like, well, I have 7 leads that come in and I think I can convert 4, but I'll kill myself to convert 5. Why not make those 7 leads 14, right? And
Yes.
so instead of converting 4 or 5 out of 7, we're converting 8 out of 14. And so, there's attrition in our business. We all have our referral base, and I tell loan officers that you're always going to be losing some of your referral base every year. It's
Mhm.
like a financial advisor that gets residual income. Every year there's runoff, right? And it could be the market declines. Realtors say, hey, I can't do this business anymore with the new comp agreements, or, post pandemic, I just don't like the way things are looking, or they're aging out of the business, or, I haven't met up with them for lunch in 3 months, and this other guy took them out to, coffee 6 times, right? Like, so there's going to be that attrition. But I think if we can think that if our runoff rate, let's just say, for example, is 20% a year, we got to build 40% a year, right? So we have to outpace our runoff with new gains, right? And so I'm always thinking about upgrading my relationships. How can I get these top producers that have a team that do a lot of business and add them to the mix? And then if I lose a one-off agent because they age out of the business, but I added a team that does 80 million a year. And so we're always looking to grow those leads, and I think that's the key thing, because we're all going to lose leads for different reasons. Maybe other markets aren't as rate sensitive, but maybe less of their clients qualify for the loan. So they need more leads because they're only going to qualify 4 out of 7. So and not wasting time and getting frustrated on the 3 you lose, just staying positive and just keep moving forward. There's so many distractions, right? With the tariffs and all the geopolitical stuff right now. It's easy to get distracted, right, Chris?
Oh, absolutely it is. And, setting that time aside in your day to stay focused on growing the business and doing the activities that you know are going to move the needle. And I see a lot of people that get caught in the wrong activities. And so they get that feeling of overwhelm, or that feeling of like, I'm trying really hard, but I don't seem to get the results because they're posting all the TikTok videos and doing all of the stuff. So I think a question that holds a lot of value for the audience is, where do you get the majority of your deals from? Like the 4 out of the 7 or the 7 leads that you get, where do you spend your time focusing on generating the leads?
Yeah. Absolutely, the referral partners. And by referral partners, I mean predominantly realtors, right? It could
Yeah.
be financial advisors, it could be accountants, not to say those aren't good sources for leads, but we really need to understand that our customer is the realtor. It's not necessarily the borrower, and we want the borrower to have a great experience, don't get me wrong, but it's the realtor that is an annuity of referrals, right? And I think what happens that sort of struck a chord with me too, Chris, is people get sucked into focusing on the wrong things, right? They say, they go into this, I want to try to control what I can't really control. It's like, I got a call from a realtor today. I always have these, like, have you spoken with so and so lately? And I said, well, he's closing next week. Well, Andrew, I think he wants to back out of his purchase. She said that. He's nervous about the market. It's about a $3 million deal. And, stock market's like up and down, what, 5 to 10% a day here, it seems like, Chris. So
It's crazy.
the guy is freaking out. Like, he's sort of like, should I be buying? Is the market strong? And I said to the realtor, I said, well, I don't think me reaching out to him and drawing attention necessarily about this and saying, hey, Mr. Smith, do you still want to buy the home? He had reached out to me and said, well, what's the status? I said, your loan's approved. There's only a couple things left and we'll be great for closing next week. Smiley face. We can't control that. You see that? And so I think, like, for the loan officers listening, you've got to focus 99% of your times on building those leads,
Yeah.
whether it's making sure you're connected with all of your referral partners in those different sort of social media platforms, right? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Are you posting content that they are going to find of value, right? Like us boasting that I was number 7 in the Scotsman guide, is that really of value for them? Probably not, Chris.
Yeah.
I think them seeing we're successful, but maybe giving them ideas that says, hey, you know what? I lost 30% of my business last year because inventory was low, but Andrew just gave me 6 new loan programs that I didn't even know existed. And I
Yeah.
could have converted those 3 or 4 people from last year that I let go. So you really want to try to tailor your approach to help those agent partners succeed. And we're in this together, right? Like, if those agent partners don't succeed, they don't sell houses, Chris. We're out of business, aren't we? You
Yes, we
know?
are. That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in how you approach, first off, filling the bench and then maintaining the relationships. So are you working off of a qualified list, and you have a process for just continually reaching out to the partners that you see a good fit with?
Yeah, so we have a pretty good tool for mining talent in our area, and we can kind of see like who's producing, who isn't. We also know the names because our market is pretty localized.
Yep.
And what I say to, again, for the loan officers listening, reach out to all these agents. It's a numbers game, right? But you have to always reach out with an add value proposition. It can't
Yep.
be, oh, hey, I've got awesome rates. Can I take you to lunch? It's
Yep.
more, hey, I have some ideas that you might find valuable while you're continuing to build your business more strong. Would you be open-minded to hearing about some of those ideas over coffee? And you know what? I'm going to get a no just as often as someone else, right? Oh, well, they're going to all say yes to you, Andrew. They don't really. Like I reached out to a top performer just yesterday, huge producer. She's done like 8 deals in the last week. And she said, Andrew, I am out straight right now. She said, I'm doing mainly listings. I'm out straight. She goes, I can't meet with you till this summer. And I said, okay, so like June, July would work well for you, Janice. That's what I said. And she said, that should be fine. But you know what, Chris? Just that outreach, I'm going to get a deal from her next week.
That's right.
She's going to go, he's making an effort to meet with me. And even though I blew him off and said I can't meet for 2 months, I'll follow up on that. And it's like, we got some sporting game tickets, and we just went to a game the other night. We have 4 seats to the Red Sox, and we said, hey, we had to invite like 15 people to get 3 that could actually go because everyone was already obligated elsewhere. It was also 30 degrees that night, but the point was, in all those people that couldn't go to the game, we extended an invitation to. Do you understand that? So there's a value there. So I think the key thing is, even at my level, and I've been doing this 22 years, we're always working to build more, Chris. We're never just satisfied with what we have right now?
Yep. That is it's the perfect mindset. And so with your knowledge, I have to ask the question. So we've got 12 different offers that we use to get top producing agents to say, okay, I'll meet with you, basically. And we have a CRM, sends them all out. And one of the strategies that I have really fallen in love with is the podcast strategy. So you, Andrew, start a podcast. We call it the show because it goes on YouTube, goes on all the social media, and you're like highlighting the agent. But what you're really doing, like you're spotlighting the agent, helping them create content, but it's consumer direct content. So both of you benefit from the content. So the question is, do you always lead with the coffee offer, or do you research the agent ahead of time and look for, okay, what might the pain point be, and reach out with a tailored approach to the pain point that you're looking to solve for that agent?
100% the latter of what you just said. So I do a little bit of homework, but what we do, Chris, is when I meet with an agent face to face, it's more about an investigation than anything else. It's not necessarily like hey, I have great rates and here are my 6 most popular programs so you can earn more commission. It's more like so do you have a lender right now? Oh
Yep.
yeah, time to time we send it to this person. Well, how come you're not more devoted to that person? Well, he doesn't answer the phone on weekends. Jot that down. Okay, doesn't. Okay, well, what are your have you had a lot of leads lately that you haven't been able to convert? Well, yeah, I've had like several investors and they're like self-employed and they can't get a loan because they write everything off on their taxes. Write that down, and you start thinking in your head, well, if I can tell them that I cover all weekends, 24/7 coverage, phone, email, text, if they knew about no income verification loans for investors or bank statement loans for self-employed individuals or 1090, but I really build up a case before I say that. Like it's not, and then I might say like, well, what'd you close last year? We did 50 million. Well, what are you looking to do this year? 80. Well, how are you going to get to 80? Well, I've got to hire a couple more agents. So do you have enough leads for those agents? Like, are you producing enough leads that you can recruit those agents? Well, I hadn't really thought about that. Write that down. And, so you really start to sort of like, if that makes sense to you, Chris. And so I really build a case, and I find that by the end of it, they're like, "Geez, like this guy just like plugged every hole in my boat." So it's that's sort of the angle that I take. Yeah.
And I love it because it's a consultative approach, but it's also approach that shows that you genuinely care and you're looking for solutions in their business. You're not just there to sit them down so that you can pitch your rate sheet and the services. There's true value in the conversation.
That's right. That's right. And like I say to them, it's always their success is our success, right? So it's like, they may say, "Oh, well, you don't want a seller lead," and I say, "Well, why would you think I don't want a seller lead?" And they say, "Well, you can't help them." And I said, "Well, are they buying a different house?" "Oh, yeah, they might be." Well, if they had a bridge loan to buy a different house before they listed that house, would that motivate them to do their listing with you more quickly once you get them under agreement on a purchase?
Yep.
Well, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. But if you had a bridge loan and you could get them under agreement, then they'd have to list with me right away. Okay, so I just maybe we have 2 deals instead of 0, right? And so just little things like that, that you can show them. But again, you have to make it more about them, Chris. And I think that's the critical thing is it needs to be a consultative, investigative approach where you're really learning more about what they want versus just sort of pitching assumptions of what you think they want. Because half the
Yeah.
time you're right, half the time they're wrong, but it also doesn't come off genuine. It doesn't come off the right way, you
Yeah.
know? Yep.
Yep. I could not agree more. And I'll pivot just briefly to
Yeah.
speak to our listeners here because of the market conditions that we're in. There's lots of listings. There's the market dynamic has changed and in a lot of marketplaces across the nation. And one of the things that we've been using in our scripting for agents that say, hey, look, why do you want to talk to me? All I've got is these listings. I don't have a ton of buyers right now. We offer the solution to generate the buyers from the listings. So we say, hey, what if we were to help you to promote your listing and we'll work the buyer leads for free, find out which ones are a good use of your time, they're pre-qualified, and we'll refer those back to you. So the point here is that no is never a no, and an objection is always just a way to find value for the agent, not
That's
to
right.
say,
That's right.
you know. So you bring up an incredible point there, Andrew. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. That's a great one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you can probably tell I love to find the solutions and the offers, and I tend to lean to technology to provide those solutions. So,
Yep.
we'll switch gears a little bit. Um, I'm assuming the other half of your business, so we've got professional referral relationships. I'm assuming the other portion that fills out the most of it is database. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's 100% accurate. Yep.
Okay. So how do you approach your database marketing? What's your philosophy on how you market to your database and build those relationships?
Not well enough. I'm going to say that to you. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not great at everything. I'm okay at certain things, but I'm lacking in a lot. So what happens, Chris, is I think as people get more and more busy, you know, and everyone's busy out there, we sort of like we miss certain things, right? So we have a really, really robust database. I've been doing this 22 years. We have a lot of clients in there, but is our follow-up the best? Probably not. You know, we have various AI tools that kind of like follow up with them from time to time.
Yep.
We have some different products that we promote to them from time to time, and you know, a lot of them might say unsubscribe, right? But anytime someone applies, they kind of go into this follow-up tool. They get a little bit of AI treatment, and the AI thing is sort of like a, "Hey, Mr. Smith, how's your home search going?" Or "Did you have questions about loan programs?" And once they reply, it sort of pulls the lead back to me so that I can kind of engage at that point. So a lot of it is going to be, like you said, it's probably 50% new business from partners and 50% repeat referral through the database. But yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't think our follow up with our database is as good as it should be.
So this is probably there's a huge collective sigh of relief across all of our listeners at where the number one, the number seven loan officer on the Scotsman's Guide. Also, I think we all could do a better job of following up with our past clients. But I think it's also a testament to probably your process in how you treat your customers and how you process the deals that you get as many referrals as you do because you've earned it through the process and the way that you handle your clients and handle your business.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a huge takeaway. Um, for us, again, I'll share a strategy with you so that we can have the conversation about it because I think it's valuable for us. And then I think it's also valuable for the listeners. So I have this big idea that our data, so qualified agents, qualified real estate agents are the lion's share of where the majority of the funded closed deals come from in our industry. And then I look at the financial planners and the accountants and the attorneys and title companies as this like secondary referral source that I see is very valuable, but harder to get to because typically there's a gatekeeper. It's just a different style of outreach and a different style of business.
Hmm.
So when I look at database marketing, I look at our database as an opportunity to open up referral relationships to financial planners and insurance advisors. And we're using AI to do that. So what I've done is I've structured these little AI reports and we do themed months for the database. So let's take the example of tax season is coming up. So, hey, y'all, probably not the best way to start an email. Not a copywriting course. Please forgive me. But like in 90 days, tax season is coming. And I've written this little PDF that has the top 5 things that you need to know about before you go into tax season. And oh, by the way, my Rolodex is your Rolodex. If you would like a professional referral to a tax planner or an accountant that can help you with your tax season, just reach out. I'm happy to make a connection. So you send the PDF out. I mean, with AI, it takes a grand total of 15 minutes to put the whole thing together, put a cover on it, make it look nice and professional on the brand. And then you have past clients that open it and go, wow, that was really good. Hey, Andrew, I would like a connection to the tax planner or the accountant. Then all of a sudden you have the thing that you need in order to open the relationship with the partner that you've been looking to build the relationship with. So being the industry leader that you are, what's your feedback on that way of looking at database marketing?
It seems incredible. I mean, so for me, it kind of falls back to the like, when I think about this and we're having this conversation, there's so many different marketing avenues out there that I am not doing that would be incredibly effective to double or triple my business like that, right? That I'm not doing, right? So like what I think of is I think of the database and I think you could segment your database too, as well as like,
Yeah.
these are all my financial advisors, these are all my accountants. And you could have like certain content that's sort of like uniquely characterized to those recipients. But no, I mean, with what you're saying, there's just so much you can do out there, Chris, to really like attack this game. And it's hard not to have success if you have these habits, right?
Yes. Yep.
Doesn't it seem that way? Like, how can you not succeed?
I could not agree more. And you just said, I think one of the most powerful words that exist in our business and in sales in general is habits. Um, what does your day look like? What is your habit for success?
Yeah, so that's it's good and it's bad in the sense that I'm incredibly regimented, Chris. So like, I always bring up my father in these conversations because growing up, he worked for General Electric. He was there for 40 years. He was an engineer. There was no such thing as like his day was like the alarm clock goes off at 6:19. He's in the shower at 6:26. He's in his car by 6:41. I mean, it was just ridiculous how regimented his schedule was. And there was no such thing as a sick day. There wasn't like oh, I have a cold, I'm not going in. Like I think in 40 years he might not have ever skipped a day. Like it was crazy. And so for me, I think our business, unfortunately, because we don't have a boss per se, because we don't have someone, you're not punching in on a clock every day, it leads to poor habits, right? I think for a lot of people. And I think for me, it's just such the opposite of the way I'm wired. Like I couldn't do that. And, people say, well, you've been doing this 22 years, Andrew. You made X amount of money. Why are you still doing it? And I said, what else would I do with my time? So I think the habits are critical, but like to take you back. So generally I'm working out in the morning. I want to get kind of feeling good. I'm having my breakfast, fueling up in the right way. I feel like if we keep our bodies really healthy, Chris, and we stay in great shape, we can really perform. I'm 45 now. I started this when I was 23. So it flies, right? So we get in the office and all of my day is scheduled. I have Zoom calls, I have open houses, I have speaking engagements, I have calls with borrowers and realtors. Everything is on a calendar. So and I just use Outlook, but every half hour I might have a call. I'm mining my emails, I'm following up on stuff. My schedule is very full, very, very full. But again, all good stuff. So I think, but I don't work a ton either, Chris. And I said this to someone yesterday. I was having lunch with one of the loan officers in my branch, and I said, if we're working 80 hours a week and then working all weekend straight, you never have a chance to like recover. Like your battery is just constantly drained. And when your battery is constantly drained and you're constantly in the grind, you're not really thinking clearly or performing all that well, right? Your form is way down. So like I find ways where I can really work a good 40, 50 hour week. And no doubt my 40, 50 hour week is solid 40, 50 hours, but it isn't 80. It isn't working, 20 hours on the weekend. It's ways that I have team members that we're working as a cohesive unit so that I can take the time I need to tend to my 10 and 12-year-old children, my extracurricular or whatever I want to do. So it's really important that we have that time to take a vacation, to step back on, certain times, nights or weekends, and to really, because that's when we get better thoughts about the business too, Chris, and we come back that much stronger. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I think the whole work smarter, not harder, and leverage. I think there comes a point, at least in my career, where I had this kind of aha moment where it was like, I can't do anymore. I'm doing the maximum amount. So the only way for me to get past this obstacle is to find other people that can do it better than me. And boy, am I blessed to have a team around me that does most, no, pretty much all of what I do better than me. And it is it's a freeing moment. And we see loan officers go through that where they're taking the application, they're chasing the underwriting, they're getting the docs, they're doing everything themselves, and then they get to that little glass ceiling, 4 or 5 loans a month, and then they're like, oh wait, and the first team member comes, and second team member comes, and so it's no, it's beautiful because I think with less comes more, but you got to force yourself to have the discipline to guard your time.
And I think like a big thing, Chris, that I would say is be open-minded. Like you asked me about my database and I said I'm not very good at it. I'm very open-minded. So like I don't ever think like I can't learn something from a $30 million producer or I can't learn something from a real estate agent. I never know. Like I could be wrong. The world is always changing. So I think for like these loan officers tuning in, like be open-minded and keep in mind, Chris, you and I have gone through that adaptation process over the glass ceiling, our head busted through. We hired an assistant. We went through this like control freak of I don't want, John on my team working on this loan because he's going to screw it up. And so you and I have already gotten through that whole process. And so we really know the end game. And I think what happens sometimes is that the newer loan officers, less experienced loan officers, might not be as open-minded to some of these things that we've already lived and adapted to. So like we know the way to win. And it's not to say that I can't do better and do more because I will continue to do more, but we've already figured this game out. And so I think for people to just be open-minded to those suggestions and welcoming to them, like is really critical.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And listening to one of the best podcasts in the industry to get knowledge like this, I couldn't. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But Andrew, I know how time regimented you are, and we are over time, and you have been just like overly generous with your knowledge and your time. I cannot thank you enough. One final question. No, sorry, two final questions. So first, where do people go to find out about you? How do people follow you on social media? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so people can reach me. My company website is themarquisteam.com. And you can check me out on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm on all those profiles. So if you guys have questions, hit me up, Chris. I may be hitting you up, Chris, for some of these ideas after this podcast. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. And again, thank you for being so generous. And final question, ukulele or guitar?
I have both in here. The one behind me is a ukulele, but I do have a guitar over here too. So
Do you
just
play both?
I do a little bit. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
No way.
Yes. Yeah.
My brain can't do the two fingering positions on the chords. It's like I have to stick to one or I lose them both.
You'll have to
So
bring them both to Costa Rica, your new place, right?
yeah, that's it. Right on. Well, again, Andrew, thank you for being so generous, and to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. And we will see you on the next episode. And make sure that you show Andrew some love in the comments.
Thanks so much, Chris.